Hi, this is our 1992 Isuzu Rodeo. Just wanted to do a little short video on how to use the four-wheel drive system. This is a 5-speed manual with 4 high and 4 low gearbox, and it's got optional manual locking hubs as well. So for standard road use, obviously you just leave it in 2H, which is 2-wheel drive, so just the rear wheels are engaged, and high ratio. So high ratio or high range, essentially easy way of thinking about it is you would use high ratio or high range at higher road speeds. Typically with low range, you'll only be using that at very low speeds, or often on particularly steep gradients. So you know, up and down muddy or snowy or gravelly hills, it will help you get up there because you've got lower gearing, and it'll help you get down with better engine braking at lower speeds as well. So to change out of our 2-wheel drive high ratio or high range mode into 4 high, you just follow the path that's on there. So we just want to go straight up and away from us. You'll want to do this while stationary, and typically I'll do it in neutral as well. And you just want a firm push away from you. It'll feel like it's engaged, and you'll get a light on the dashboard indicating that all 4 wheels are engaged. A little green light comes on. If we go back to 2 high, you'll see that light's gone out, and I'll push forward again into 4 high. There we go, the lights come on again. Now at this point, what we're doing is we're sending power from the gearbox to both the rear wheels, which would happen on 2 high anyway, but we've also engaged power from the gearbox to the front axle or the front differential. So the power's going forward, it's spinning the little drive shafts from the front differential to the front hubs, but those aren't necessarily turning the wheels, because at the moment the hubs are unlocked, so they're able to move independently of the drive shafts that are bringing that power from the engine through the gearbox forward to the differential and out to the wheels. So there's another step that we've got to do in order to actually make the most of that power going to the front wheels, and we'll show you that when we get outside. Okay, so we're in 4-wheel drive, we're in 4 high, we're on our slippery surface that we were a bit worried that we wouldn't have enough traction in just 2-wheel drive. But let's say there's quite a steep hill, or we've got to make a really steep hill start, or we're descending down the other side of that hill. We want the engine to really slow us down with engine braking in a very low gear. And say our first gear isn't low enough, the way that we actually give ourselves a whole new set of lower gears is by going to low ratio or 4L. So in order to get there, we just continue to follow our path. So we're already forwards in 4 high. We're going to go to the left and then pull back towards us, past back where it would be in 2 high. So we move to the side and we come back down. Again, we're in neutral. Actually we weren't, but typically I would be. And you do want to do this bit stationary as well, because you don't want to be moving while changing between gear ratios. That's not great for it, even if it would let you do it. There isn't a separate light for this one, but we do still have the green light on the dashboard illuminated, showing us that power is going to all 4 wheels. So now we can use all 5 of our normal forward gears, but they'll be significantly lower ratio or lower range than they would be in 4 high or 2 high. This means that in a given gear, you'll be moving significantly slower for a given engine revs than you would be in high ratio. So if, for example, in second gear, 1000 RPM, we were doing a certain speed in high range, we might be doing half or a third of that in low range. It also means that we're more able to effectively use the torque of the engine on moving loads that otherwise we wouldn't be able to move. So if you're going up a particularly high slope, or you're moving a very heavy load, you're able to do that because you've got lower gear range. Each rotation of the engine is having to do a smaller amount of work. Conversely, you don't really want to be using low range on the road, because you'll be screaming along at high revs in 5th gear and not really going anywhere. Okay, so these are the locking hubs. There's one of these on each of the front wheels. And you can see on the outside ring, which is consistent with the hub, it's got a word that says free with an arrow, and then it says lock with an arrow. And then on the inner ring, which is the locking ring itself, the bit that you move, there's a little arrow there, and it says twist clockwise to lock, or anti-clockwise to go free. So at the moment this is in free or open or unlocked mode, which is what you keep it on for on the road when you're in two-wheel drive, when you don't want it to be sort of driving. In order to move it into lock, we've put into our 4 high or 4 low inside. We've come outside and we're going to rotate so that this arrow is pointing at lock. You can do that by hand if you want, if it's not too stiff, and it should click once it's in place. And then you go and do the same on the other side, and now you're ready for essentially sending power to these wheels, to all 4 wheels. Once you've got back onto the hard and you've knocked it back into 2 high again, you twist it anti-clockwise so that the arrow is pointing towards free. Again, it will click once it's in place, and then you're ready to go on the road. If it's a bit stiff and you're struggling to do it by hand, something like a pair of pliers, mole grips, a spanner of the right size, you can just sort of tuck in here either side and use that to help twist. And when you're finished, you can then twist back again. Sometimes that's a bit easier than doing it by hand, or likewise if it's covered in mud, maybe that might be a bit cleaner. But either way, just make sure that it's turned all the way and it's clipped and that the arrows are lining up. And remember, when you're back on the road, to spin it back to free again, so that you're ready to carry on without the drive, or without the drive shafts being locked to the road wheel. One thing to consider if we are in 4 high or 4 low with our front hubs locked, so we're sending power to all 4 wheels, is we don't really want to be using that in high grip situations. You don't need it for a start, so you're sending power to places that it's not necessary, and you're essentially wasting power. It will use more fuel, it'll be less efficient, you'll be wearing out your drivetrain more quickly. But also, if we're sending power to each of those 4 corners and then sort of turning, we're moving wheels at a different speed, different road speed, depending on whether they're on the outside or the inside of the turn. And that can cause the transmission to bind up a little bit, causing increased wear or potentially even damage. So once you've finished on your slippy stuff and you're back on the road, pull over to the side, pop it into neutral and stop, and shift back over to 2 high. Make sure it's nicely firmly seated in there. Your light on your dashboard will go out, and then don't forget, of course, to hop out and just undo those hubs as well.